which means a company had to create the ability for AI to create it in the first place, which means the AI can then create more AI, and then all hell breaks loose.
Just
Essentially, is
blew
what we're
my
going
mind.
through.
Just blew my mind.
The future of music.
The future of music. The future of music.
The future of music.
The future of music.
The Future of Music podcast.
Hey there, how's it going? Ryan Withrow here, and I'm joined by, of course, Jonathan Boyd, my wonderful co-host, and we are here on the Future of Music podcast, where we always show you how to survive and thrive in the future of music. John, my hair's down today, mostly
too.
because, your hair's down on your chin, I think is what
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think your beard is growing longer than my hair is at this point, actually. It's impressive, man. First of all, how are you? I'll give you just a quick personal check-in. How are things? How's life? But then also, I've already told you what we're talking about today, and I'm pretty pumped about it. So outside of how you're doing, how should they be doing when they hear this wonderful intro and episode? What should they get excited about too?
Well, first of all, I'm good, and I'm actually really pumped up for what we're going to talk about today, which is really crazy because we've been talking about for a long time about some things that are coming in the future, right? And then all of a sudden, through the episodes, they started coming. It was one thing after the other. This week, there's something. Next week, there's something else. And now I feel like we're just somehow in warp speed where we're talking about something called the FutureVerse. And we're also going to talk about text to music. Literally, you can input some text and music comes out. So, really, really interested to dive into that today.
And if you're interested in testing it, maybe if you click like, subscribe, and the alerts, I don't know, music might pop out. I don't know. You're going to have to try it, though, to see. And follow us on your favorite podcast platform as well. Mine being Spotify, because I'm old. But yeah, today we're talking about the future verse, and specifically FutureVerse and this thing Gen1, JEN1. But there's so much. I mean, I try explaining to like my family back home what Web3 even is, and it's just like, do you have a year? Like, can we just like meet every day for 8 hours a day to talk about it? There's so much stuff to uncover, and we only have this episode to do it. But I'll kind of help. I'll try to give everybody a good understanding of what this all is. We've talked about things like Metaverse and all of that, but I think we tend to get this visual in our head when we hear Metaverse as like, it's just like a gaming world thing that you could go in and like, hey, here's my avatar. I'm gonna go over to dinner, fake dinner with John tonight and sit in his home in the Metaverse. And we kind of just we just like make it kind of comical in that way. And it's just kind of where we're at. But FutureVerse is kind of taking it up a notch. So we had Metaverse, and you and I were all a part of this big reveal of we're going into the Metaverse. NFTs, baby. We're doing it all. Don't worry. And then like 2 months later, nobody was talking about it. It kind of crumbled a bit. And I think half the people on Metaverse lost all of their money off their NFTs. But we're at a point where other companies are seeing it going, man, that was a massive potential. And they blew it. Like, it could have been better. Sure. Was it good? Yeah. But could it have been better? Yeah. So teams like FutureVerse are coming along now, and their specific goal is to, of course, master this Web3 kind of metaverse world, but also incorporate decentralized artificial intelligence into the mix too when it comes to Web3. And one of the goals I heard from one of the interviews I watched about the company is that one of their goals is to present people these things, whether it's music, whether it's pictures, movies, games, whatever it may be, in this open world called the FutureVerse. But they don't even know it's really Web3. Like, their goal is like, make it so easy to feel like it is just real world, that you don't even realize that AI helped with this and it's Web3 backed. But I think the big question that a lot of people probably ask, John, is like, Web3 sounds fancy. Like, what the heck is Web3? I think the best way I could describe it is it's like a new trendy name kind of for decentralized web. That still sounds technical. So we'll go back. Web 1 was like read only, right? That was it. So that was Web 1 basically. Web 2 is like read and write, basically, that way. And then Web 3 is like read, write, own. So that's what we mean by decentralized. It doesn't go to others. Like we're putting the power in the people that are in the metaverse and the futureverse and all this fun stuff. But it's everything. I mean, when people think Web3, they're probably thinking games and websites, and that's it. But the multitude of what Web3 allows us to do with things like new money layers in the internet, so new payment gateways and methods that are decentralized, new identity layers for our personal identity and what it can do. I think the biggest thing is that it allows us to actually set up cooperative ownership and governance of structures or companies as well. So that's why you hear a lot about the NFTs and Bitcoins and all that stuff. But, that's a real fancy way of saying FutureVerse has come along and they said, let's do Metaverse better. Let's bring in better technology. Let's put more focus into it. Let's literally bring in over 200 visionaries that are highly experienced in this concept of Web3 and start to do it way better in the open metaverse and just knock it out of the park because it's been poorly done. So they did that. They raised 54 million in their first attempt at a seed round. And they started to create what they are calling Gen1, JEN1, not Generation 1. Okay. And Gen1 is this incredible text to music platform using music generation AI from FutureVerse's technology and all of their backing and their framework. But it's killing it. So we're at a point now where it's been like these songs have been sent to A&R reps for them to evaluate that Gen1 is creating. And the model has been evaluated by an entire panel of music industry A&Rs, much like Bernard, right? Who we've had on here. And the votes are in, man. It beats other existing methods of text to music generation. It's the winner. It's the clear winner because they are doing Web3 better. They're involving AI way more effectively, and they're able to do a lot more work. So we'll talk more about it, but you're not shocked, I'm sure. I think the one thing that really made me happy and excited was that it felt like we had this monopoly kind of like metaverse equals meta. Like we're taking ownership of this whole thing. And we've always been waiting for another Titan to emerge and start to do it better and feel like we have more options. We have more focus. So I'm excited that somebody else has really been emerging in the field and is coming out. But what are your initial thoughts? I mean, I just told you that AI is taking over Web3 and that your identity layer is probably owned by it now. So what's up?
Well, I think Identity Layer is a fantastic album name for a progressive metal band. But other than that, Dream Theater, other than that, the idea, you mentioned something that I've told you about before, we've talked about before, other than all the crazy stuff that you just mentioned, which we need to come back to and be like, what the heck are you talking about? But the idea of the quote metaverse. So I think most people's maybe introduction, if you will, to this whole idea of metaverse probably comes from Meta, formerly Facebook. And they meaning Facebook, I'm not going to call them Meta, sorry, think that they are going to create this quote metaverse and it's going to be the metaverse. It's the metaverse. We own it. We have it. That's it. We're first. This is it. Everybody's going to go into this place and that's going to be the end of it. But that's like saying we own the website. Nobody else can go to any other website. We're going to go to this website. That doesn't make any sense because a quote metaverse is just a digital space, just a digital area. It's a website. Like you can go, you can create an infinite number of them and go to an infinite number of them. It makes absolutely zero sense to me. So the fact that quote FutureVerse is now coming up and saying, well, we're going to create a new better version of this. I think what this leads to is we're talking about experiences. Our experience is better. Here's some tools that you can use to facilitate the experience, do stuff in the experience, do stuff in the world. But again, it's no different than going to being inside of a video game or being inside of a website. It's just a different one, but from a different company. So again, I totally expected this to happen, and now clearly there's a very big quote competitor, which I don't really know what they're competing with, except for all of the stuff in the quote metaverse. But yeah, it's kind of expected, and I'm glad to see that somebody else is kind of stepping up to the plate and essentially offering people another place to go, another type of experience, another another instance of expanding this world that we're starting to move into of all this future focused stuff like VR, Metaverse, AI, etc. And it's all kind of wrapped into one. So it's pretty exciting for me.
And I think again, we're kind of going back. We'll take it from this. Wow, what an announcement! What a crazy thing! Technical jargon, continue kind of thing. Over to the basics.
Mhm.
Um, again, I think when somebody that's not really well versed in the whole concept of metaverse, when they hear that, they more than likely do associate it with Meta, and by that logic, as we've talked about with the headsets and everything, many of us just think it's like it's a game. Like a lot of people just think like it's just gaming. Like people are just gaming and hanging out in a game environment, like The Sims, but like real life. And while that's true, it's so much more than that. I mean, there's so much going on, and you could start to think of these universes as their own worlds, functioning worlds. Basically, is the way to say it. So there is exchange monetarily. It might not be USD, right? But it's literally like you're exchanging coins or whatever the currency may be within this open
Mhm.
world that you are a part of, and you're actually establishing yourself in these worlds as an individual, an avatar, like that can have a career and have earnings and buy a home and have all of this stuff. But it goes even further than that. So I mentioned the idea of them being involved in music creation. So that is their specific, like, Web3 based music creation, generation AI focused projects. They have movies as well. They have music videos. They have just
Mhm.
immersive painting and art and everything as well. That was my phone. But they have all of this immersive stuff that is so much more than you just sitting down in a world and being like, "Oh, this is a cool video game." And it starts to help you understand that while they all come together to make this metaverse or futureverse, all of
Mhm.
these elements live on their own as well. So you could start to use the tools that they are using to create all this stuff externally. So that's why we get something like Gen 1, which is great to have in there because you could start to play around with that and use that as part of the metaverse. But also, if you just want to work on some of the best text to music generation platforms, you've got it because it's a part of it, but you can tap into that's fine. So the biggest difference, though, John, and one thing I think you and I have talked about a lot when it comes to the music generation side of AI, is that we've always said things like it just kind of sounds like, I don't know, like clunky and a little bit lo-fi,
Mhm.
and like it's not there yet in quality. Well, the reason Gen 1 is working so well compared to the others is because it was specifically done for a high fidelity form or model of text to music generation. So we're talking about it actually having 48 kilohertz audio stereo, as well as it doing all of the tasks, every bit of various music generation that it produces in high fidelity while maintaining the computer efficiency to be able to do all of that as well. So we're actually getting like studio quality text to music generation now at this point. And this is when it starts to be like, oh, we knew it was coming. Like we knew that it was going to start to be hard to tell the difference. And then you start to understand that future versus goal is to put it out there and see if people even
Mhm.
notice, really. They're
Mhm.
starting to just put it out there. And I think one of the articles I read, and I'll leave you with this thought to comment on, was like, it could already be out there. Like FutureVerse and their goal is to just make this content that doesn't feel like it's fake or computed content. So their goal is to be that good at Web3, AI, and everything, so that it's just happening. But it's cool. I mean, it can be scary at sometimes, but I think it's pretty cool.
Sure. Well, reality can be scary too, right? There can always be a guy hiding in your back seat when you get in the car from the shopping mall. But it's where it's going is the quote digital reality is going to become seamless with the quote physical reality, which we can make an argument about. But basically, it's just an expansion of what we consider reality. There's going to be the digital aspect, which is already happening, but there's a digital aspect, and then you have the physical aspect. So like your world literally just got bigger essentially is what's happening now. Um, before we continue, I actually just wanted to make a comment for some of those listening who might be wondering what the heck is text to music. So can you just elaborate a little bit on what the heck is that and how does it work?
Yeah, like let's say I wanted AI to generate some music, and
Hmm.
all I have to do is go into a text box. Just imagine, if you would, the Google search bar, right? And you just type in something like, I don't know, upbeat, fast tempo, lo-fi music with drums, bass, and guitar, and then you say generate, and it creates an entire song for you in high fidelity, equal to studio mixing and mastering capabilities. That is very difficult to like understand the difference between somebody that actually did that physically and a computer that has done it. And I know a lot of people are probably listening thinking like, ah, that can't be that hard. But I think anybody that's a like either a musician or somebody that is in music production or like a composer, you start to understand all these nuances that go into like what made that song a hit. Well, I know it's in this key signature, it's in this
Mm.
BPM, it's the drum beat is an up tempo, it's like a halftime at first, and then like there are all these small things that a computer just goes, I know the key, I know all the notes that go in the key, I know how to do harmonies, I know how to do it in time, I know BPM, I know all of this stuff, I know how to write a hook, I know how to write a bridge, I know how to write a chorus, I know how to like, and it's done. What takes
Mind blowing.
people a ton of time to do, the computer's like, there you go, 2 minutes. I just spit out a hit. So yeah, a high level is text to audio. Music is just typing in an idea or a thought, same process, and all of the computing happens in the background and actually produces something that is hard to tell the difference between human made and computer.
That's pretty awesome. So it's in essence, it's like a Google search bar, like you said, where you're basically just generating new music. So you search quote for whatever you can think of, whatever kind of music you want to hear, and then it generates it there on the spot.
Yeah, and it's happening everywhere. It's not just music. So, Photoshop, Adobe has
Yeah.
recently come out with their AI generative fill. So, I can go out into a field, take a photo of myself, and then just select all the areas around me and say,
Mhm.
put in an old castle on a lake with some trees around it. And it just produces with AI. It's not bringing in other images, it's sourcing it right from the code and building it, and many photographers now are relying on that
Yeah.
100% because they don't need a studio. They don't need to be on location anymore,
Yeah.
and nobody can tell the difference. It's
That's
already to
wild.
the point where unless you like zoom in all the way to like the pixel that you could see, it's hard to tell the difference anymore already. So things like that. Same thing. If I were to do a generative fill, you circle it and you say, make me a castle in the background. Great.
Maybe.
Enter,
Yeah.
yeah, generate. Same with the music. Give me a Jimi Hendrix inspired song as if he was still alive in 2023. Go,
Yeah.
and it's done. It's incredible.
Man, that is incredible. Yeah,
Yep.
that actually makes me think of I know we'll get back on topic here in a second, but houses. So people like to update their houses all the time. So I'm wondering if soon enough they're going to have some kind of AI auto generative paint or something like that where you just basically click on your phone and it changes the colors of your walls and stuff. They probably already have that, but either
I
way, back to the music topic.
I mean, I'll keep going actually. So Adobe came out, I think last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, with I think it was Adobe. I don't know. A company came out last week or the week before, and they just released a dress that does that. So
Huh.
a woman came out in the dress, and they push a button, and the pattern changed, and then they
Wow.
push a button, and the pattern changed, and the color changed, and so it's funny that you mentioned that because they're already thinking of doing it with clothing so that people can buy one piece of clothing and have
Yep.
thousands of pieces of clothing. Now, I don't know what's going on underneath. I don't know that I want all those wires and and computing chips next to my heart, really. But we're getting there, and it's yeah. It's just thinking about a year ago, all of this stuff, and hearing people make their first renditions of like a text to music
Hmm.
or just the AI Johnny Cash we listened to that just
Hmm.
basically pulled his old progressions and then his
Oh, that's
voice and
old
gave
news
them
now, man.
it's. And that was like 2 months ago,
I
and it's
know.
already competing. And the actual scores, by the way, the A&R reps, when they were all paneled, they gave like actual musicians an 83.8 out of 100 for
Mm,
like the actual score that they were able to give them. And they gave this, the generated audio, 85.7 out of 100. And like it's amazing. And they have said that there are already music pieces going out there in demo form that are starting to take off from
mm.
FutureVerse and Gen 1. It's amazing.
That is amazing. So that's text to speech. I mean, text to speech. That's text to music, right?
Mhm.
So you mentioned all these other tools in quote FutureVerse or the FutureVerse or that they develop. So what are some of the other tools that we're talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, when we think about, I mean, ask yourself like this question, I guess is the easier way to answer. What is possible with an open metaverse and then decentralized artificial intelligence? Like the answer is anything.
So that's
Um,
what I want to ask you about. That's what I
yeah.
want to ask you about. Decentralized AI. What does that mean exactly? How is AI decentralized?
So if you think right now about where you want to go, have a platform write a book for you, what do
Hmm.
you think about?
Probably Chat GPT is what everybody
Chat
thinks about.
GPT, baby. Chat GPT. It's another company that's governing all of it. So
Uh-huh.
while you have this beauty of like, hey, AI writing, this is great, it's still somebody at the helm telling you how to use it, what you can do, what the limits are. And you also have them being like, well, if you want that capability, we're a company still. So if you want to pay
Hmm.
us, you could pay us. So by decentralizing that, it puts the
Mm,
ownership of the AI tools in the users
I
and
see.
in the metaverse instead. So it's almost a way to bypass another kind of monopoly when you think about it. When I think about writing an AI paper or copy or an email or anything, everybody chat GPT,
Mhm.
GPT, and it's the go-to. So they have ownership. That's it. So they want to put ownership in everybody else and into this future verse so that you can be a part of that ownership and governance of what's happening in AI.
So, but wouldn't they still have to create the tools? And somebody has to create this, right? And if a person or a company doesn't create it, then quote AI creates it, which means a company had to create the ability for AI to create it in the first place, which means the AI can then create more AI, and then all hell breaks loose.
Just
Essentially, is
blew
what we're
my
going
mind.
for.
Just blew my mind. My mind is blown. Yeah, I think if everybody needs like a reminder of how the process works, think of Bitcoin. That's it, right? Of course. Did somebody have to initially create Bitcoin and get them out there to mine and start to limit them? Yeah, but they at the end of the day didn't like own that code. They didn't. They just put it into this open sourcing platform and made sure that it was secure enough to where like it couldn't be hacked. People couldn't own it, and just kind of gave it out. So yeah, you need to have creation, which is like we're talking religion now. You have to have creation at some point, but it's really at the end of the day about like what is the result or like that thing that you are creating. What do you want its purpose to be? So
Mm.
it's always possible to be like, I'm going to be creating this, but then I'm letting go. Like I want other people to build this or own this or be a part of this. So that's really the difference is that of course they're going to own the whole entity of FutureVerse, which is probably where their minds are going. They're like, let's have other people create great stuff for us
Of
all
course.
day and grow the FutureVerse. You can have this text to music thing, like have it. Yeah, that's fine. Have the AI. That's fine. We're
Mhm.
owning the whole thing, holding it all. So we're okay. But yeah, it really comes down to putting the power into the users. And with that, giving them the ability of ownership and governing as well within everything. So it puts the power back to the user and it's not in Meta's hands, for example, right?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, I guess. I mean, we're talking about the clockmaker idea,
I
where a
sense,
clock.
I sense a cynical John coming. I sense
No,
it.
no, no. This isn't cynical. So for once, it's not cynical. But if you we're talking about the clockmaker idea, where the clockmaker makes the clock and sets it in motion, and then kind of like the Bitcoin thing, right?
Mhm.
Satoshi Nakamoto. So if FutureVerse, just use them as an example, they create these quote open source AI tools which supposedly are set in motion. They are the clock makers. And then you keep mentioning the word governance. So basically, just for everybody listening, if you're not, if you're completely turned off by the word governance, or you're just like, what the heck does that mean? Basically means you can just control, you can vote on it, basically, on how it works. Like, let's make changes, kind of like being part of an HOA, which is a lot less exciting. But
Absolutely less
which means
exciting.
you can't change anything in an HOA. But anyway, um, so basically, they set these AI tools in motion, and apparently the code is going to be open source, and apparently people can vote on it, or they can vote on changes. But there's no implication of any kind of limits, because if there are limits, that means there are third-party imposed limits, which means it's not decentralized, right? So it can really become anything. And then again, we lead back to, we go back to the beginning of religion, or all the way forward to all hell breaking loose, which probably leads to religion again. So here's where this podcast is going.
That's good. That's good. I know everybody likes to sit in on a podcast that has no result. But yeah, no. It really, here's the thing. We're at a point where it's all coming, and
Yeah.
it's all being created. We have no idea what it looks like in like 5 years. Is it even possible to do something that is completely in the ownership of a public group of people that are secure behind a decentralized platform that can't be found? Like, if somebody does a crime, you can't find, right? So there are all these questions that come, but we're moving forward regardless. So
Yeah.
it's almost like
Fair enough.
maybe all hell breaks loose. We'll have to see. We're at a
They're
point where
pushing
it's
the
like,
boundaries.
yeah, we're at a
They're
point
pushing
where
the
it's like
boundaries. That's what
it's
it is.
gonna happen. Like,
Yep.
we're gonna have to figure it out at that point. Um, but I also think that you start to learn. So obviously there is a holding. There is FutureVerse. There's a reason that it's a holding and it's a company and it's being
Mhm.
financed and invested in. Because there will, I'm sure, come a time where they have to be like, okay, we can't allow this. We have to make sure that this is
Yep.
regulated slightly. So I think that we have that, but it's funny that we went from this way of making a business so many years ago that was like, I've got my exact business plan done. There we go. It's ready. Let's make a business, to the complete opposite, which is us now being like, I've got an idea. Let's roll it out and we'll fix it as we go. I don't know what's happening, but it's moving so fast that it's become this like, roll it out. This decentralized AI. Who cares? Let's try it. But I mean, it's there are so many pluses, so many potential negatives that come from it for sure. But I'm excited to see what happens as this continues to roll out. To see how is it adopted? Is it adopted as a completely positive interaction and part of our lives? Because it will be a part of our lives at some point. We might not be at the generation that fully adopts this and it rolls out completely. It might be longer, it might be shorter, it might be in 2 weeks, who knows. But when you start thinking about the fact that right now, even something as simple as my money right now is in the hands of the banks, and not the most reliable. You could look at their record, not the best, but it allows you to maintain all of that power. So when we think about
Mhm.
Web3 and all of our potential finances being able to be in this decentralized currency that isn't hackable, it isn't traceable, so many possibilities are there, but again, it will always be used for good and bad. So it'll be interesting to see
Mhm.
as it goes through. But yeah, so FutureVerse, I'll make sure to link their entire site. I feel like their website reads like a giant line of code,
Good.
which is basically what you would expect from a company being like, open metaverse and decentralized AI. But I'll link that in here just so everybody knows. The key difference is when you think of metaverse, um, so many people that work in Meta are like focused on that. The FutureVerse was actually a merger of 11 different companies that are coming together, and we're leading the pack in AI and metaverse work as well. So you have a lot more brains coming together from different environments and different experiences rather than, you work here, so do this thing, 2,000 of you. whatever it is. So it's just a lot. It's a better perspective, I guess. And that's more than likely why they're doing a better job at what they're doing. But I'll link Gen 1. Also link the FutureVerse as well in here so that you could dig in. But final thoughts, John. I guess final, because all hell might be breaking loose. So who knows?
It could be. So, going from all hell breaking loose, I have one question for you. And let's reel this back into the whole point of the podcast. So, what do you think all this means for the future of music?
I think it means what we were saying it means. You're not going to stop this stuff. It's always going to continue, and it's going to get better a lot faster than humans get better at making music and recording music and doing work. We 2 months ago listened to one, and I remember us both being like, the quality's not that great. You could kind of tell that its
pretty
bit
good.
rate is down, and like it's the hurt, like it just was like fuzzy, I guess is a good way to say it in terms of how I felt listening to it. Low quality. So from that to now being passed in front of people that their entire career, their entire job is to listen to bands, listen to artists, and sign people to record labels. And without knowing that one was an artist versus artificial intelligence, rated the artificial intelligence better than the artists. That's a big deal. That's they listen to it every day, all day. They find the
Mhm.
artist, Bernard. That's what he does. So the fact that we're fooling them should tell everybody that it's coming and it's getting better quicker than you could ever imagine. And it's going to continue to be better. And at some point, who knows? It could be writing better than we could ever write and perform. So for me, I guess, where is it heading for music? It's going to continue to get better and better and better and better. There's no stopping it. So it's embrace it and understand that you can have the separate genre of generated music, and you're allowed to enjoy it. Don't worry, like don't feel like it's a bad thing, but embrace it because it's evident right here that they're focusing on it and it's moving quicker than possible.
Oh, there you have it, folks.
There it
That's where the
is.
future of music's going.
That is, and where the future of your life is to click like, subscribe, and the alerts button, as well as follow us on your podcast platform. But I think also with this, I want to make sure that we involve everybody here. I know we have a lot of people that are commenting and interacting with us all about the technology side of music. So
Mhm.
all of you that have been doing that, especially a lot of AI music focused people commenting on our stuff. How are you feeling is what we want to know. And anything that, we didn't cover that you really want us to cover in this, let us know in the comments. And we'll make sure to bring that there. But until then, John, I'm very impressed that I got through without coughing. I've been very sick, so that's been wonderful. But I did it. I'm proud. And now
Good
my voice will
achievement.
be gone. Yeah. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. I'm happy with it. So I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. I'm pointing at the camera that are watching and listening. And we will see you next time on the Future of Music podcast.